Welcome to another show of Don't Get This Twisted. I am Rob, along with my co-host, as always, Tina. How you doing, Tina?
I'm doing all right. Running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but I'm doing all right.
Yes, you're not alone. You're not alone.
No, I think that's life again these days.
Yeah, always seems like it's not one thing, it's another.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically how life is always going to be, and I think that's how we're gonna.
It's okay. The alternative is not fun. So I was not complaining. I just do that a lot. I realize that I push my agenda to the limits. Like I try to fit everything in. I don't try to say no. And I'm going, why the hell am I doing that? Because nobody else expects me to be like that. It's just me. So I'm having these realizations that I need to get my head out of my ass and start doing things just a little bit differently.
Awesome. Well, that's always a plus.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about that one day.
Yeah, for sure. That is very correct. Very, very true. All righty. So we, as always, do our ideas and shows on the fly, because that's always a good thing to do. But this one, I think, is probably across the board easy to talk to and talk about because it's always around and no matter what you do. So we're going to talk about cheating in a relationship, and either kind of every way about this, being either the one who did or the one who got cheated on, and how we justify some of those things and how we don't justify some of those things. I think that it is definitely a subject for everybody, because I think everyone at some point has either been
cheated
on one side
or cheating.
Yeah, on one side of that equation, because obviously it's prevalent, and probably a lot more now because it's just easier to scroll and find someone. Probably not as easy as it wasn't easy in before. I mean, I think.
Well, you weren't as accessible to as many people as we are now.
We are now.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, and I think the other flip side of that is it could have been easier not to, because we didn't have a phone in our pocket.
Yeah, strapped to our ass.
Right. But we also weren't easily reached. So I guess it's probably very similar, but I just think it's much easier to find someone now. Dating apps are the thing, and not that they're. Although I did read something or see something yesterday that the dating apps are like at an all-time low. Like they're losing their ass when it comes to. Yeah.
Did they say what the reason is, or?
I think it's just people don't believe in them now. So their stock is like dropping like flies. So
wow.
And if you can believe this, there's really only two companies. There's Bumble, which is their own company, and then there's a subsidiary company that owns everyone else. Like every single app you can think of, they own.
Really?
It's one big company. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. But so let's go down the line of, like, obviously, cheating is prevalent. There's no doubt about it. I think, I don't want to say less or more, comparative to years. I don't know if there's any statistics that it's more prevalent now than it was in the, early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s. I don't know that, but it is prevalent now. We talked about it before. Like, I think we've been on both sides of that. I've been the one who was the other person. And I've also been the one who got cheated on, but didn't know for sure for a very, very, very long time. So, yeah. So I think by the time I found out, I wasn't as hurt. It was 8 years later. So for me...
Well, after the end of the relationship.
Correct.
Okay.
I found out, and I kind of put two and two together about a month or two after it kind of ended just because someone someone had come up to me and goes, "Hey, we're meeting in this mall and they're with somebody now." I was like, "Oh, okay." So that the relationship kicked off pretty fast. But here's the thing. That one happened to me, during my marriage, and I think that there was bigger problems much, much more before that. Being part of the one that I was part of, I think also had there's so many stories behind that one. Like, the person, she was in a relationship that I would say wasn't the greatest. And she was with somebody who she was with a woman and not a lesbian. And there was issues with that. And there's a lot of like much larger story to it. And I don't condone it. Like I know now, many years later, like I was in the wrong and I probably hurt a lot of people because of it. So um definitely not proud of what I did, but there's sometimes there's bigger stories behind it. Not that it makes it right, but there are larger stories.
And I think that's what people do now is they justify their behavior because of the backstory, or they find a reason for it to be okay. And I'm not saying you personally, I'm just saying that in these situations, like people find a way to make it okay so that they could live with what they're doing, knowing that there's repercussions. But I think that I was trying to look at the big picture, like why do people cheat? And I've come up with the only answer I could come up with, and that is loneliness. It means that their relationships aren't working that they're in, or they're not in one, and they want to be with somebody that's got something more than they do. And, there's 100 different reasons, but I think the core is loneliness. It's not being able to find that ultimate relationship where you can't live without each other. And that's the problem, I think, in society today, is that we're so superficial. We don't give people a chance to make that connection because everybody's got too many choices and too little time. So they're just packing them in.
Yeah. And I think, look, and again, I don't want to justify anything, but I've had several people who have stayed in relationships for the wrong reasons. And it's hard, like financial reasons. People, like I have a coworker that I used to work with, and she stayed with her husband that was not the best for years and years and years. And look, they had an off and on way of doing things. They both partied way too much. So they were codependent on each other. So when they were under the influence, it was great. And then every other time it wasn't. And then they would start drinking too much and then they would fight each other, and like she went to jail and he went to jail. And like there's a lot of like weird things.
That
But
sounds like a party. Oof.
man, it was very, very hard. And then, I've looked at other people that, the same thing, like alcohol and drugs are a bad way, but you become codependent on each other. And then, you know, people feel bad, but they're doing something that they're doing. I think you're right. I think loneliness or lack of what you're getting out of your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and you can emotionally cheat. Don't get me wrong. Like it, I think a lot of people do that where it might not ever be physical, but it's an emotional thing that would probably lead to physical if it ever would get to that. Like, I think that there is something to that, but I think emotional relationships for sure. I think because we are missing something or we're lonely or that person's giving us something that our mate isn't, and they're not ever going to. So you're continuously pushing towards that. So look, I get it. And I hate to say that, but because I want to be in a relationship with somebody and I would love to like have that. But I also think that a lot that comes with that is that people aren't communicating anymore.
Mm-hmm.
People just shut down.
Well, everybody's
And
got a label for everything. So no matter what you're feeling, they got a label that justifies their bullshit and why you're wrong. And I think that we got to quit that too, like narcissists and breadcrumbing and all these fucking terms. You know what that is? That's a person just going through their day and doing their thing. Everybody's got issues. Everybody's got problems. But now that there's a label we could throw at somebody, nobody wants to be in a position of being vulnerable because they're going to be blamed. And we need to stop that.
yeah, I mean, look, I do agree with that. I think that there are, but here's the problem. I think that there's probably a lot more things out there that are true. Look, people do breadcrumb, and there's no doubt about it. I think you also have to both understand what's going on. I think a lot of people understand both sides of that, and they're in whatever they're doing because
I wasn't saying like any one label. It's just there's 1,000 things that they could say about a person to make them wrong
Mhm.
in the relationship.
Oh, well, yeah. That's very true, for sure.
And I'm
But
like, really? What happened to the days where I remember when my mom and dad were not getting along, my mom's friends would say, "So, how's it going?" And my mom would just say, "He's an asshole." And everybody's like, "Oh, okay, yeah." Typical man, typical husband behavior is what that translated to me. But
Mhm.
now it's like, "Oh, well, he's doing this and he's that." And there's all these diagnosis for people's bad behavior instead of saying, no, quit being an asshole, quit doing what you're doing, because that's not how you're supposed to be. Like, we've gotten to a place where people aren't accountable. So it makes sense that they would not stay faithful in a relationship.
um yes, but I also think that there's so many people, and again, narcissism is a look, we're all a little bit narcissistic, eh, to some degree.
We should be,
Um
or else we wouldn't be able to live in this world.
but there are people who show narcissism on a clinical level that just hit every single thing.
Right. But it
That
shouldn't be their mate diagnosing them.
No, but you're right, but some of these people will never ever go to therapy, or because they don't think they're doing wrong. So I look, there's people who have lack of empathy that just have no empathy built into them. And I think that we all are looking for the right mate. I think that's why people end up cheating, because you might be in a relationship that has absolutely no empathy, no sympathy, no intimacy, and then someone
That's right there
shows you
is
all
not a
those.
relationship. You know what I mean? Why
Yeah,
would you
I
be in
do,
that if you're
because
wanting to
maybe
be in a
you had
relationship?
because maybe got you've already got in so deep, and then now they're showing you these things. Look, people wear masks from the very beginning, a lot of the time. So you end up finding someone who now fills the space that they're not doing. So of course you're going to go down that road. The problem is that you never end up leaving the relationship you're in.
I don't think that's a
So
relationship though. That's a situation that you need to get out of, period. And see, that's the thing. Instead of like going around the problem and trying to live with the problem and trying to help the problem, or, you know, put a stamp on their bullshit, get out of the problem. That's the only
for
thing you
sure,
should be doing. And there's no excuse. Money is not an excuse. Time is not an excuse. Kids aren't an excuse. Nothing is an excuse. If you want to have a good family and you're putting your all in it, and things are not going right, and the person that you're with is not helping that, and there's nothing that's changing, no matter how much you try, you got to look at that and say, enough is enough. You don't need to go out and cheat. You don't need to go out and find something else, because that only creates a bigger problem. Well, if you're not going to leave, why do you want another person? If you're not going to fix things, then why are you out gallivanting around? Like, get out of what you need to get out of and live a life that is more meaningful. And
For
I was to
sure.
blame. I was to blame for that. I stayed way longer than I probably should have. We weren't in the same place, and we weren't mean to each other. There was nothing like that, but we weren't exactly watching out for each other's heart. And I think
Right.
that when you have a partner, you need to watch out for their heart 24/7. You always need to have in your mind that is your responsibility. That is your job before
Right.
anything else.
I think look, how can I say it without there's you should yes, you should have your mate's heart. Look, I'd rather break their heart and get out of it than and look, to me it's like this. If I'm with somebody and they're contemplating cheating, I'd rather have them come to me before it ever happens and say, look, I can't do this anymore.
And that's the
Because at least
responsible thing
that's
to do.
yeah, because then that at least you're getting hurt for the reason of saying, hey, you know, I haven't done anything, but this is where I'm feeling. Because it's hard enough to go through that thing. I got sent a video the other day. I'd have to, I don't know if I have it still, but it was very kind of good idea about how men will ruin their own relationship, and that we, you know, our own insecurities will do it. And I think that it's a very true thing. I'd have to send it to you so you can see it, but it's like we ruin our own shit. All of us do with
Mhm.
insecurities. And if you're with somebody that you don't trust from the very beginning, then it doesn't matter. You can't send your girlfriend out for a night with her friends if you don't trust her. Then you're just gonna ruin your own thing, because the whole time you're thinking, what's she doing? Is she with this guy? Blah blah blah. The cheating part happens when there's nothing left in the relationship, though. I don't
Mhm.
think people just go out and cheat. That's not generally what happens. Can it happen? Sure. Alcohol is a hell of a drug. Like, you can go out and get drunk, and the next thing you know, you're kissing somebody in a bar. But if you have that kind of tendency in you, you shouldn't be going out with your friends and getting drunk.
Mhm.
Like, most of us know that. Like, if that's your thing, don't put yourself in that situation. Don't go out. Stop doing that, because what's going to end up happening is you're going to find yourself with way too much booze in you, and you're doing something that you're not even doing for the reason of like getting anything out of it. It's just you're doing it. And look, I've seen people do it. Like, there's booze that'll make people do dumb shit. Um, but the real cheating, I think, happens because of you're missing something in your life. And before you ever get to even chasing somebody else, you have to be able to communicate with your mate and say, I am not happy. And then see if you can fix it way before that.
Yeah, see, I don't agree with the alcohol thing. I've been piss drunk too many times and have never not known what I was doing. And I don't, that's bullshit. Like, everybody knows when they're drinking what they're doing. And if they're blacking out, they wouldn't be doing anything because they're blacked out. So
Mhm.
I have an issue with people using alcohol as an excuse. I don't get it.
I
And I
just
don't
think people
accept it.
can get very friendly with alcohol. And I've seen it in front of me. Like, I've had a friend who years ago, and I'm talking many, many years. I was married, actually. Um, get very drunk and start hitting on me to where I had to step back and go, look, now, and I don't think there were any feelings there. There was just super duper intoxicated, not blackout, but very close. But I've also been around people, like, I can drink and I may say something, but I know what I'm doing. If I
Mm-hmm.
act on it, it's because I know exactly what I'm doing, no matter how. But I don't get to that thing. But I'm talking a good buzz. So if I'm doing it, I know what I'm doing. I'm not kissing you
Everybody
because
knows what they're doing. That's the point I'm saying. I'm
I
like, don't give me bullshit. Because see, a lot of women will say, well, I didn't. I'm like, oh, come on, you totally did. Well, I knew this. I knew that. Yeah, you knew. Don't lie. See,
yeah,
that's
because
the
I think
problem is like women will say things to men and men will believe them for the most part. And I'm like, no, no, no. I do your hair. You're an asshole. Just take it for what it is and like own it. Just own what you're saying. Because lying to me while I'm doing your hair just makes me want to mess it up.
right. I think that what you're saying is that like you're not going to go out and do something with somebody that you have no feelings for. I think it's an uninhibitor. If you're with somebody that you like, you may be more apt to do something, right? Or you're more apt to say something or, go down that road. I believe that we all know what we're doing. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that it's not that, because I've done it, I've done it not too long ago, and I was very buzzed, and I ended up kissing somebody, but I knew what I was doing. As a matter of fact, I was going to whisper in her ear that I wanted to kiss her, and it just went down that route. We kissed later on again. And I knew exactly what I was doing. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm buzzed and I'm just going to do this. No, I knew what I was doing. I wanted to kiss them, and that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, this person's not in a relationship, so to get out, it's not even on the route of cheating. But I think, look, cheating has become easier, but I think it's also becoming, the biggest breakup point for anyone. And I'm talking about divorce, anything, that most of the divorces are unfortunately started by women. About 74% are all started by women. Um, so down that road, women cheat too. I think, but statistically, at least what I've seen on a few other pods or, um, uh, videos, men cheat more though,
Mm.
by a lot. But I think,
Well, I think that it's a sign of the times, though. The way that women treat men, they can't possibly survive with staying with one person. Like, I hear from him, oh, he's such a jerk. He's such a this, he's such a that. I'm like, when was the last time you told him he did anything good? When was the last time you said thank you for helping? When was the last time you said, hey, you know, you look sexy putting those dishes in the dishwasher? You best believe when I have a man around, they know that I see them, that I'm encouraging them, that I'm loving them through whatever they're doing. I do that. And I make it so blatantly obvious that they just laugh at me. But I do that because if we don't build up each other, especially if women aren't building up men, if we're knocking them at the knees, they're going to be that tall. They're not going to
mhm.
be, they're not going to be anything more than what we make them. And I think that as a society, we treat men like they're less than. So it makes sense that they would go from one to the next. They got to get their needs met somehow. And if they're not getting them met at home, they'll get met somewhere. And that's the same for women,
Correct.
though.
Reassurance on both sides is everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Mm-hmm.
not reassuring your mate, they're going to have issues.
Yeah.
Most men, I think, cheat for the satisfaction of just sex. Women cheat for emotion reasons.
Mm-hmm. But I think men
Because
cheat for emotional reasons too.
I,
Because
I, I for sure, but I don't think that. I think it's because they're not getting whatever they're looking for at home, so they go outside their marriage to just have sex and then come back, because they probably still do love their mate. I think when women cheat, they're already done. They've checked out emotionally. The person they're cheating with is giving them the emotional stability they're looking for, and sure, sex is part of that, but I think it's also intimacy. You're looking for that fill of someone holding you, someone actually giving a shit about you. Men, I think, are just doing it because they're getting their socks knocked, and then after that, it has nothing to do with that. They go right back home and they're right back in their life. So, and again, I'm just going by like statistics or what people, have answered in the past in some kind of questionnaire.
Get it. I've been on both sides of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I've been cheated on several times. And the funny thing is they've all come back and said, wow, you treated me better than anybody I've ever been with. And I'm like, that's good. I'm glad I did. And I don't know what you want me to tell you now, because it's not ever going to happen again. I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go back and do that again. But
Right.
thank you for telling me I did a good job and I was doing my part, the best that I knew how. And then I did cheat. And for me, it was a loneliness. I was really freaking lonely. And in times where things were really bad in my life, my partner couldn't be there for me emotionally. And anybody that knows me is I am such an emotional being. Like, even though I'm not whacking out like my friends do and going berserk, like I'll hold it together for the most part, probably more than most. But inside, it doesn't matter. Inside, I could be a freaking total mess. And the energy that I push out of me, my mates have always known how I felt, even though I couldn't say anything. But very few were able to master the being supportive, the emotionally supportive person. Because, I think for men, anytime a woman gets weight, when she's losing her shit, all men want to do is run. And I don't blame them. They should. Like, women could be pretty crazy. But at the same time, had I had somebody just say, I got you, and hug me and hug me till I felt like they got me, I think I would have done much better. And I wouldn't have had those feelings of loneliness. Now I've been told that that I'm too needy. And then I've been told that they wish that I was needy in any aspect. So I've been on both sides of the
Spectrum.
the picture. So I don't really know which way works better. I don't know. I was however I was feeling at the time and needed something I wasn't getting. And if you going through that for a very long period of time, I just couldn't make it work anymore. I couldn't keep it together. The loneliness was exhausting, and it was I don't know. I think it made me I felt I had less, I felt less of a woman when I wasn't getting my needs met. I still needed to make sure everything was done and I had everything together and that I was doing my part as a partner. But then I felt like the part that was supposed to fill me wasn't there. And it stayed there for a long time, which in fact did make me cheat. Not make me, because I really want to stop this, like, blaming other things and other people. Because of that, I cheated. I'm going to say it that way.
Sure.
So, but the funny thing was, I did say, don't you miss your freedom? Don't you want that? Like, we've been doing this a long time. Don't you miss that? Don't you? I was saying things. I talked and said a few times that I wanted to break up, and for whatever reason didn't do it. Like, thinking things could be better, wanting things desperately to be better was part of it. But I think it was a lack of having my shit together to be able to go on my own. Like, I would still be dependent on my partner for for financial reasons, instead of just saying, fuck it, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make sure I have my shit together. Life where you can't have your shit together, for whatever reason. I think that you should have your shit together enough that you should be able to take care of yourself, whether you have a partner or not. But at the stage in my life that I did it, I did not have my shit together enough. And that made me stay when maybe I should have left earlier. Maybe I should have cut us both loose and said, hey, it could have been, it was nice. I love you to pieces, but I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't do that. And I should have.
I mean, I think that's the hard part.
So when it is the hard part, but you know what? That's the humane way to be with a partner. I remember the look on his face when he found out and he confronted me. And to this day, that killed me. It killed me. I couldn't fix his broken heart. You know what I mean? And that's what I was supposed to be accountable for, was his heart. And I hurt him deeply. And so for me, as much as I had been cheated on and known that everybody survives it, I mean, everybody moves on, it happens. I didn't like being responsible for that look on his face. That to me stuck. And it's definitely the driving force to where to this day, I will not do that again. If I make a commitment to somebody, that commitment is going to be the commitment, and I'm going to walk the way that I've always walked before I did this, and try to make things work, because I do want to have a really mature, a really healthy, a really balanced relationship. I do want to trust my partner. I do want to love intensely. There's a lot of good by just having that. Now, I don't want to get married again. I could tell you, I don't need that. I don't need that. If somebody's coming home to me every day and they're dedicated to us just as I would be, I don't need that piece of paper, nor do I need the medal around my finger. I just need that person to be my person and do as they expect me to do. And that's it.
Right. The flip side, I want to get married again. I would definitely do it again. But I also
You're
believe
crazy.
that I've also been divorced a very long time. And
Yeah.
I think my views have changed. Look, is it going to be difficult to do that? Sure. But I believe that if I'm finding the right one, I'll do it again, and I would do it without a care in the world. But I definitely think it's like dating. I talked to somebody the other day about dating, and that's what I'm going to date for. I don't want to date for fun. I'm past that. I want to date for a relationship.
I'm not saying that either. I do want to date for fun. I do want to date somebody who is fun, but I want a life partner that will stay with me. Yes. But definitely doesn't have to be married.
Yeah, but it's like, to me, I think that's the ultimate commitment. Like but again, I think we're also in two different places. You haven't been divorced very long, or that's just the way you feel. I think the thing with like being the other person in the cheating part, the hardest part of that is if you fall for them and kind of realize that as that's going, you're pushing like, hey, I'm the one. And all you have heard the whole time is, I'm in this still. It's one day at a time, and let's see what happens. That's the hard part, because if you're falling for somebody and then you want it to change and it never changes, that's the hardest part. At least to me, being the person on the other side of it, and you're going, hey, like, I know you're not happy, and look, there's always circumstances. I don't want to say that, I don't want to blame anyone. She stayed for whatever her reason was. And And later on, the funny thing, if you look at it from the point of view, she ended up getting out of that relationship and getting a relationship with a guy, and I went my other way. And, we're friends to this day. She's single again. And look, I would love to go down that road, but it's also things that have to be done correctly if that's going to happen. But it sucked and I would say that I was in love with her then. Looking back on it, I was in I like her now. I even said something to her one day that if this was ever to happen, like I would have to fall in love with you, because I don't think I was super infatuated, and we have a good time together and there's a lot of good things about it. But I was in with her, and I'm in with her now. But it did suck to have like very strong feelings and like always feeling that you were helping this whatever hole I was filling, like this emotional gap. But I was never picked. It was like, it's like being the always the bridemaid, never the bride. But I think that, going forward, look, you have to have full trust in somebody, whether you have to be willing to get your heart broken to be in a relationship. At least that's how I feel. If you're not, then, look, I would go with this person tomorrow and have no issue saying that she wasn't going to cheat, even though she did. But I also believe that there's communication skills. And if you believe the person, you're going to try. Now, I think you're also going to get out of things much quicker. Like the first sign of anything, you're just going to gotta go and be done, which I think is also not a bad thing. Like some things just aren't meant to be and some are. And if they are, they're going to happen. I'm not a very religious person, but I do believe that God puts you on the path of who you're supposed to be with. And if you're supposed to, you're going to. And if you're not, you're not. Those are just part of the things that happen. I've never cheated on a mate, ever. I've been the second to other relationships more than once, and I won't go down that road again. So if the person I like got into another relationship, I will walk away because I don't want to be in that. It is not a good feeling for one, I would do it for her, and I would also do it for the guy she's with. When my friend got into this relationship with a guy, I disappeared. I didn't talk to her for 2.5 years. I don't want to be that person again. And if you're not being picked, that's just part of it, and you move on, and that's okay. But it sucks to be the person on the other side, and it sucks to be cheated on. It does. That's just, now, thankfully, I didn't know about it. My 8 years later, I kind of shook my head when they told me for sure that that's what happened. And I went, yeah, I kind of thought that, but no one ever told me. You also find out years later that a lot of people knew and they never said anything to you. And that's also kind of shitty.
Kind of devastating. Yeah. I had, the
happens.
Very first time I was cheated on was definitely the worst. And come to find out, he had cheated with my cousin. And
oh, wow.
My cousin flew him out there to visit her for the weekend. And they were messing around that weekend. And the devastation that I felt, because I was in love, your first loves are crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are
intense. And then to find out that my cousin was a part of that, that was like a double. I don't know.
Double
that
whammy.
Was like, yeah, it was a double whammy for sure. Yeah. And that feeling stuck with me forever. Like I could go right back to that moment when I found out, and I found out that it was with her a couple years later. And when I found out that memory is never going to leave my DNA, it's in there. Like it was devastating. But then, like, as you get older and you've been through a few things and you look at life differently, it gets to the point where you can live through it. and it's not devastating, and you see the signs, and you should be looking for the signs all along. You should be looking to the person that you're with and know that there's no question that they're there with you. And if you're seeing signs, you need to address that and just be honest and talk about it.
I saw something on TikTok because first I had to download it for people who send me things. But I thought there was something that was very prominent that kind of shook me pretty good, is that, you have to continue to date your person. I told somebody today that I thought the whole thing is to never let the honeymoon stage go away. And I'm a hopeless romantic. So the person I like, I think may be a little flabbergasted by me. Cause like, I'm probably going to grab you from behind when you're cooking. I'm going to want to dance in the kitchen for no fucking reason. I'm going to, pick you up and walk around the house with you in the air. I'm goofy. And I like that kind of thing. And to me, that's still the honeymoon stage. You have to continue to do that. If you continue to communicate and make sure that you're dating, even if you're married, and if you're continue the honeymoon stage, regardless of how stupid it is to the person that's cooking, like, oh, I'm cooking right now. It doesn't fucking matter. Turn the fucking heat off and I'm going to dance with you. These are the things that'll keep your relationship much more open and communicative. And you're not going to have to worry about intimacy.
You can't do that if the person that you're with isn't that type of person. You want to find somebody that you could play with, like play, have that type of interaction, be with somebody who isn't always like, I got to do this or I got to do that. Cause I was in that type of relationship where I got this or I got that. And you know what? I don't want to be in that anymore. Cause if you can't stop and play, not saying I'd never get your work done. That's not what I'm saying. You should always try to get everything that you need to accomplish done. But if you can't stop in the middle of something and play, then that's the wrong type of person for you. Because you need that. I used to tell my ex that we had our kitchen remodeled, and I'd say, pull my pants down and just have sex with me. I don't care if I'm cooking or what I'm doing. And he's like, no, because you'll tell me no, you'll shut me down. And for 4 years, I said the same thing. And in 4 years, you think he would just have said, okay, I'll try it, just to prove that I'm right. He in his mind already had it right, but he had no proof. He didn't give me a chance. And that became a thorn in my side that I couldn't get over that. Just couldn't. I was like, why can't you do that for me, with me? So, but some people are just not meant to be like that. And if they're not meant to be like that, that's not going to be fun for you.
Yeah, you're correct. You have to be with somebody who's going to understand that if you can't give up 5 minutes for playtime, then you're going to end up not having the person that you want to be with. It's a two-way street too. I do believe too that there is times where you have to be serious. Like there just is. And if your mate goes, it's serious time, you also have to be able to stand back and go, yeah, you're right, it is. It's a two-way street on both sides of that. Like if you have people coming over and you're trying to clean the house, you probably shouldn't fuck around. But if if you come home from work,
that's
come sit on my lap for 5 minutes. Yeah. No, I agree. No, look, like you're saying, it's both sides of that. Yeah, I think you have to be with the type of person. But I also think you have to be with the type of person that when you get home, every blue moon, it's like, come over here and sit down for 5 minutes and we can talk for 5 minutes before we get up and cook and get up and do this and get up and do that. You have to be able to show that intimacy so you don't lead them out the door to someone else. This is where communication comes in. Or Look, I was watching somebody where they said they started couple therapy when they started dating, like
Mm.
early on in dating. So they had already they went to therapy or whatever it was, and even though they weren't having problems, it was just, hey, this is what's going on and this is how we are, and they ended up realizing the small things during these therapy sessions that helped them build a stronger relationship so it never got out of control. Cheating happens when things get out of control. One person shuts down, one person isn't getting something, and they find someone else to fill that hole. You have to be able to go to
Mm-hmm.
your mate and go, hey, we need to talk. And either side can't be defensive from the get-go. You have to listen to the person you're with. If you don't, they will find someone else who listens. Period.
Absolutely.
And you will end up
Absolutely.
not having that great person in your life because you refuse to listen, or you refuse to have empathy, or you never said you were sorry, or never said you were wrong. That is utter bullshit. You're wrong. And we all have these issues. I will say that I'm sure the person who cheated on me, I wasn't in life enough. I was in la la land. I wasn't there for her, and I probably wasn't. And that's what led to divorce. You
Mm-hmm.
have to nip that in the bud very quickly and make sure that whatever your mate is looking for, first can communicate that. My wants and needs. This is what I need. This is what I want. And if you can't fulfill those wants and needs, you need to step out before it ever gets to the cheating part. And you cannot get complacent. Getting complacent is the death of a relationship. Oh, she's always going to be there. Oh, he's always going to do this. Oh, this is what's going to happen. As soon as you remember that, you stop fighting and you stop playing. The playfulness goes away and
You stop
everything becomes too
trying.
serious. Yeah, you stop trying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the cheating will happen if you're not in their relationship enough. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to be there emotionally, physically, mentally, and both sides have to make sure that they're telling their mate every single time whatever it is that they can talk about. And look, I think men see that as nagging way too much. She's nagging. She's doing this. She's telling me that. She's not
Well, there's a
nagging.
way to say it too.
No, there is. Don't
There's
get me wrong.
definitely a way to say it.
How they're saying something should always be the thing. And that's vice versa. Both sides need to say things without it being like you're shooting a cannon across the bow. Because if every time you're coming like that, it's never going to work.
I think that we should start doing that with everybody. Like with my friends. My friends came over this weekend and they helped me out with some things. And I was so appreciative. I texted them and I was like, I love you guys so much. Thank you for being there. You didn't have to do it. And I saw how much you did. And I'm in awe of you. Like I made sure that I put the good in. Or I have a friend that every time I go and visit him, he's a neat freak, like for real. And I'll see him on the floor, scrubbing the shower floor, which looked perfect when I got there anyway, but it was just his day to clean. And I always go, damn, look at how sexy you look. Like I always try to I want people to know I see them. And I wish that I felt more seen when I was in my marriage. I think that was part of the problem. Like I needed him to see me. I needed the kudos. I needed that thank you for taking care of me too, And I think if we start doing that, if we start being a little more vulnerable and just start being real with each other, we could have really amazing relationships. We just have to start putting the good back into them. because everybody's waiting for somebody to screw them over, but nobody's expecting to have a good mate. And I always say, I want the next person that I meet, that I want to be with, they're a good mate. And I want to encourage them to be a good mate. And I'm not going to sit there and dismiss them. And I'm not that way anyway. I listen to everybody. But at the same token, I want to make sure that he knows that I see him. Because I think that men don't feel like they're seen enough.
Right. Yes. But I believe that both sides don't. There's women who also do a lot of shit and their men don't make them feel like they're appreciated. Like, I'm glad you're in my life. You have to tell both sides of that. And I think for us, that is the thing, right? You're giving your side and my side is the same. I think everyone can feel underappreciated. And as long as you're pushing the narrative of telling them how you feel for having them in your life, you'll have way less cheating. Look, you have to look at the next relationship like it's going to work. If you don't, it'll never be okay. If you go into the next relationship going, this is going to fail because my last one did, it'll never work. So
it's gonna fail.
You'll end up failing and probably out and about looking for the next person before you're out of the relationship. So my thing is, look,
absolutely,
don't cheat before you get to that end your relationship. It's okay. I think that your mate will appreciate you coming to them going, look, this isn't being, you're not fulfilling my needs, and I don't want to hurt you, and I don't want to do this. So we should make sure that this doesn't happen. And it's going to hurt either way. No one wants to have that told to them either. But I would rather not find you with somebody, because heaven forbid, people do crazy shit. People die over cheating. So that's a whole other thing. My dad knew somebody who got shot in his own front door, killed.
I actually knew a person who killed his wife's lover when he walked in and found them in their bed.
Yeah. So people do crazy shit. You see red. I get it. And then some people just walk out and never come back. So there's that too. Like literally just never ever see someone again. All right. Well, we got cheating in the book. Don't do it. I think that's my only thing. I think
save yourself.
If you've been cheated on or you've been part of that, you have to realize that it's not going to happen every time. It's just not. Just go into the relationship thinking it's going to be a great relationship, and people have flaws and they're okay.
A relationship will become as much as you work at it.
Correct. Yes, agree. All righty. Well, thanks for another week. Make sure you check us out on all the socials and on everywhere you can listen to this podcast. And hey, it's an opinion show. Don't get it twisted. Keep coming back, listening to me and my co-host Tina. We'll see you next week. Bye.
See ya.